Okie dokie. Welcome to today's training. It wasn't giving me permissions when I got started. It thought I was just a guest. But I wanted to have control over muting everyone. As adults, you do have control over unmuting yourself. If you want to ask a question, you are encouraged to do so. This is your time to listen, to share, to explore, and I hope you are just scrapbooking along while we talk today about spring cleaning. You have a couple different options for participation. You can unmute yourself and speak live, or you can use the chat area. It'll be in a different spot depending on whether or not you are on the web or on mobile, but there's a chat as well if you prefer not to speak out loud. You do have a choice of having your video camera on or off as well. Yeah, I am so excited to get started today. We do this training once a quarter. This is a really special training all about planning for the season ahead. We've called it a million different things. We've called it planning days, but I really think having a spring cleaning focus makes a lot of sense because a lot of us are in that mindset this time of year, particularly if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. You're clearing out the cobwebs and getting ready for the season ahead, and you're feeling that desire, that craving for lightness. You want to get rid of all of that winter clutter, whether that's on your body or in your life, and start getting outside, get moving, and start taking action. So you are in the right place today if you're craving that space and freedom and that fresh start, and if you are ready to make some progress and have more fun. So this is talking about scrapbooking, but we're also going to make lots of connections to other parts of your life. And that's something that I think we really excel at here at Simple Scrapper. So if you are new to our community, my name is Jennifer Wilson. I'm your guide here at Simple Scrapper. We're a community of memory keepers who like to keep things practical, and we also like to spend time thinking and talking about our hobbies. We like to optimize and really make this craft work for us. Scrapbooking is such a unique hobby in that it's so deeply personal. These are our stories, these are our lives that we're documenting. It's not just another craft. And so with that comes all these different, sometimes burdens and guilts and obligations that we have in our lives that can create barriers to getting things done. And that clutter that can pile up, whether that's in your life, on your computer, in your head, or in your date book, all of that can add some additional overwhelm that makes it hard to scrapbook. We have all faced a big pile, a mess that we wish we had cleaned up earlier that makes us wonder, oh, I should probably clean that up. I shouldn't create something. Or I can't even get into my room because there's so much stuff and I just don't have the space. So today we're going to share some techniques to help you get that decluttering started and to get things more organized and in control. Our goal here is not perfection. It's not to be perfectly tidy. Our goal is to start making progress and give you some strategies that you can use again and again, season after season, to keep that forward progress and over time become a more organized person, so that with each spring cleaning you have that the excitement to dig in and you know that you can build on the progress that you made in the past. All right, here, I'm going to take this opportunity to ask for any introductory questions. Let's see here. Pop those in the chat box or feel free to unmute yourself as well. All right, there we go. All right, we've got folks from all over here. Jerry from Tennessee, Wynell from San Angelo, Texas. Melanie's in Ottawa in Canada. We've got folks from all over the place. If you want to just pop in that chat box where you are, we can take stock. I recognize many of you. Bree lives in the Washington, D.C. area. April lives in Texas. Anna is in Utah. Bree's coming in from work. We won't tell anyone. We have Penny in Denmark, Sherry in California, Debbie in Virginia, Melissa in New York. Lisa in Germany. Got lots of Texas and lots of DC folks here today, so fantastic. I want to thank you all again for attending, and let's dive into some of the meat. A little bit later, we will do over the desk here. I'm going to show a little bit inside of the Scrapbook Your Way workbook. This is our free planning tool, and we also have a companion printable version if you want something pre-printed for you. But the tool itself is completely free. I'll just go ahead and type that URL in the chat box real quick. I know that many of you have already downloaded this, and hopefully you're using it. We've done this kind of seasonal approach to planning for many, many years now, because once a year is not enough to have that, I call it the New Year feeling. So in January, you have all this motivation to plan out how your life is going to be and to put some things down on paper. And then February, March, end of March now, April rolls around, and do you even remember what you set out to do? Some of you do, but I bet a lot of you don't, and maybe you don't even feel that connected to those ideas anymore. So that's why we take this seasonal approach. So every single season, you can recapture that New Year energy and take a fresh start to feel refreshed and re-energized with new goals, new objectives, and new plans, so that you don't several months later not feel connected. So you always do feel connected and on track. So the first thing I want to share is 3 different approaches that I have for spring cleaning. These are kind of broad concepts, and then we're going to go through several different examples of how you use these. So the simple scrapper approach to spring cleaning includes, number 1, learn and let go. This is kind of the initial thinking part. This is where you look at how you got to the place you are and just ask yourself why or how and what can I learn from this. It's not good or bad, it's just an observation. It's an understanding of, oh, this spot, this is a hot spot. For example, right here, you can see I have some piles here. This is one of my hot spots. And I know that, and I always have to pay extra attention so that it's not a pile up to here, or a pile on the floor that I moved so that I can be on camera with you guys, which I don't have a pile right now, I promise. And so when you start that process of pausing and learning from your existing behavior, it's much easier to start letting go of the guilt of, gosh, I'm not as organized as I want to be. I always have something I need to clean. I can't seem to get it together. But when you pause and say, this is reality, and my reality is okay, it is what it is, you can start letting go of some of that burden from it. And I'm going to share a bunch of examples as we go forward. Okay, the number 2 step in the simple scrapper approach to spring cleaning is to focus on how to optimize your ease of entry. And so what I mean by that is, how do you make progress quickly? How can you jump in, get from this point of knowing I have a clutter problem, I want to tackle this, to actually doing it and actually getting on the other side and having that success and feeling like, this is good now. And we're going to share lots of strategies, and I hope to hear from some of you on what you do to optimize that ease of entry. So one example here would be setting a date on the calendar. We have crops in this type of Zoom room at least once a week, if not more often, inside of our membership community. And that date has become something that our members rely on as a sense of accountability. So they know they don't have to make time for themselves. They don't have to be on their own to show up to Scrapbook. They know that they have a group that's going to welcome them and encourage them to get started, to bounce ideas off of. And that's their ease of entry into, say, even a weekend of scrapbooking. And so we'll share more examples as we go. And number 3 in this approach to spring cleaning is to find some focus. We've been reading Outer Order, Inner Calm this month for the Simple Scrapper Book Club. This is Gretchen Rubin's latest book. And if you haven't started it yet, it's super short, super easy, but chock full of so much wisdom. And she mentioned something that we've talked about here a million times, And that's, you can't say, I need to get organized, because that's such a big abstract concept. You can't write that on your to-do list because you'll never, ever feel like you can cross it off. What you can say is, I'm going to empty out this bin over here, or I'm going to spend 15 minutes working on my closet. You have to put some sort of focused, specific boundaries around it. Otherwise, it's not doable, it's not actionable, it's not something that you can cross off. And so I'm going to share some examples of how you do that as well in each of these different domains. All right, I want to mention that I see lots of you crafting, and I think that is so awesome. That's what I really want you to be doing. I want you to really be, oh, awesome, Lois. Thank you for sharing. I love a good grid there. And for those of you who are watching the replay, because this is being recorded, I hope you are crafting along as well and kind of just absorbing some of this information as we go. And particularly as we get going into some of these physical workspace ideas with actual scrapbook supplies, I definitely welcome your questions of how I organize certain things, because I can jump up and pull something out here to share. So I want to invite that as well. All right, so that is the first thing we're going to tackle, is the physical space. So this could be your creative workspace, if you have one. It could be a corner, it could be a desk. We could be talking specifically about your scrapbook supplies, how they're organized, how they're contained. We could be talking about your home at large. Or we could be talking about your photo prints. Maybe they're in boxes in the basement or the closet or the attic. How are you keeping these things manageable, and what is your priority with them right now? So we're going to use this three-step approach to go through that. So number one is to think about your number one clutter hotspot. So just what pops into mind, scrapbooking and clutter hotspot. It could be your new products, the new things you buy. They all go in this one area, and then it starts overflowing, and then you do something with it. So I'd love to hear some of your clutter hotspots for scrapbook supplies or in your creative space. And you can unmute yourself.
So Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, it's Sue. How are you?
Hi. All right, I'm going to spotlight you there. Awesome.
I did not dry my hair.
It's all good.
So here's my thing. I actually have scrapbooking supplies in 2 rooms, but I only ever scrap in one of them because I thought I would be scrapping in my studio where I'm sitting right here, but my desk isn't big enough to actually paper scrap. Like right now I'm actually digitally scrapping while we're talking. But I'm kind of loath to move everything because there's a lot of it and I don't really have a place for it to go in the other space.
Okay.
So it's kind of a problem. So I don't really paper scrap that much because I'm always like running my bins of stuff that I have, you know, neatly tucked in my drawers here.
Okay, a couple questions for you. Is there a possibility of creating an appropriate size table? And it only needs to be like what, 14 by 14?
Oh, I have a big table in the other space. It's
no, in this space.
In this space? No.
Not possible.
No, it's only 7 feet wide.
Okay.
And I already have a 2 feet desk and then a wall of stuff behind me. So yeah.
Well, I want to like put a pin in that get creative ideas to make that somehow possible. Is there something that you could flip-flop? Is there something that you could change how you think about where it belongs?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, you know, a giant table.
Right. I think it's just, I don't have enough room in either place.
Okay.
And this is like my sewing room, my office for my business, and, you know, home office, all this stuff. So it's already like super doing double duty, and I'm kind of debating just moving all the scrapbooking stuff to the other room.
Okay.
But it's tiny, not even a room, space between two rooms, and not really sure if it's going to work. So my output is, unless I'm at a crop, is super low for paper scrapping.
Okay, so focusing on the other room, do you create kits for yourself? So you can say, here's the supplies that I'm working with, or whether it's something you create or something you purchased.
Yeah.
Like, here's my tray of things.
Yeah, so I'm actually thinking of that because what I did in the other room, I have one of those giant IKEA cubes. And I took all of my Allie Edwards story kits and reorganized them. And so they're all in there, along with all the Project Life cards and stuff like that, and then things waiting to be scrapped. So that's kind of where I might be going is making kits from the stuff
and if you have a lot of storage in there, could that storage be, are there other things in that storage that are not scrapbooking supplies right now?
No, I do need to retool it once my kids leave home in August. So,
or even like finished albums, could those go in this room what you're in now to have more of your active supplies in the other room?
Yeah, I might have to switch some stuff. Instead of the kind of holding area for stories, I guess you could say, that might have to come in here and find space in here for that, and maybe just put all my supplies in the other room. I don't know.
Like, I think maybe like, this is a good example of where it's helpful to like list out on paper, maybe even just kind of generally what's in each room, what can you flip flop, and then even just doing like drawing up different scenarios. Like, what if it looked like this, and then you're like, oh, well, that just won't work at all because of this reason. But unless you like make a little diagram of those possible scenarios, your brain can't really muddle through it all at once. So
that's a really good idea. I think maybe I'll do that.
Okay.
Just list everything out. That's fairly helpful.
Cool.
Because I might have more stuff than I really need to. So there's that.
Yeah, and I mean, we can get to that right now. So the next step here, you might want to use a timer to kind of get started with some of that decluttering of getting rid of some of the things that you don't need as much.
Right.
Like taking a category and saying, okay, I want to donate, roughly a third of this.
Right.
And having a bin set aside to say, okay, 20 minutes, what can I put in this bin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we can't use what we can't find, what we can't get to.
That's true.
And as you know, if it's in the other room, you're not using it at all.
Right. And I do need to make more space in this room for my business stuff, because hopefully that's growing. So that's a good idea. I will work on that.
Well, and we'd love to continue to support you inside of the membership community too with these scenarios if you want to share those.
I would love to.
All right. Awesome. All right. I'll take the spotlight off,
My face is big.
All right. That was a great example. Sue's got a different kind of clutter hotspot issue, is that she's got lots of stuff, but it's not in the room that she's scrapping in. And how can she, stay connected on her computer with doing the paper scrapbooking that she enjoys as much as the digital? We all have these, often very personal scenarios, and that's where it's helpful to have other people to connect with and talk through and figure out, okay, how do I figure this out? Lois had another suggestion here for Sue about some sort of more vertical storage. Are there other storage options, whether it's swapping even furniture that's elsewhere in your home? I know I've done that a million times. Found other furniture that was better suited for the things. I didn't buy anything new. I just swapped things around. So the last part of this is the finding focus for your physical stuff. And that's identifying one thing. I want to call it a big rock here. That's that, Stephen Covey term, but the one project, it doesn't have to be big, that's going to make a difference. So for Sue, it's figuring out this room configuration. She's identified the problem. She knows that the problem is that she's not paper scrapbooking because it's in the other room. So now she needs to, you know, set aside some focused time and figure out, okay, what can I change? It's probably not going to even end up being that big of a change, but what can I change to make this happen? All right, any other, let's see some other clutter hotspot issues that you guys want to talk about today. Who wants to raise their hand? Anybody want to jump in right now? We can take more questions at the end if you want, but. All right, just keep thinking about it. Okay, so we're going to go into the digital space now. And this is something that I think often gets overlooked. Because our computers, they have these giant hard drives and, you know, you have plenty of space, and do you really need to delete anything? And I think in many cases, the clutter on your computer can feel just as overwhelming as the clutter in your life, because you go into a folder or you go try to dig into your computer and you can't find what you need. Just like you can't find something in the real world, you can't quickly get from A to B. And that's the sign that something needs to change in terms of your spring cleaning. Either you have too much stuff or it's not the right type of organization, is that you can't get to that from that A to B place. So we can be talking about your computer. We could be talking about other external drives that are attached to your computer. That's an actual external drive, a thumb drive where you like to keep files, your Dropbox. We can be talking about your email. Some of us keep lots of stuff in your email, and you're saving it for something. Is that where it belongs? If that's your system, that's your system, but you have to acknowledge that's your system. And then, of course, our digital photos. The biggest problem, the number one problem that I see scrapbookers have, is that their digital photos are in lots of different locations. They're not in one centralized location, and that makes it hard to not even find the photos that you want to print a scrapbook. It makes it hard to know if you have, how many copies you have of each photo, and it just makes scrapbooking more difficult when they're not centralized. Okay, so we're going to start with that number one step. Learn and let go. So we're going to learn from what overwhelms you about your digital space right now. And let's take the photos as the example. That you're overwhelmed because you get on your computer and you just have folders and folders of photos, and they're not organized, and you have lots of duplicates, and you have all the extras. Like the photo you took, I always give this example, the photo that you took of the cat food so that your husband would buy the right one. That happens to me all the time. And you know, roughly these days, 40 to 50% of my photos are photos like that, or random things that I took to show someone something, or it was a screenshot, it was directions. It was like a photo of a phone number that I wanted to save. We take photos now instead of writing things down. That's such a huge difference in the way things used to be, but that's added to this problem of now we have all these photos that we're never going to scrapbook. So if you can start paying attention to what's overwhelming you, you can start creating something different. And so the optimize the ease of entry on this would be to create some sort of automation. The easiest one for many of us is to automate the process of getting photos off your phone and onto your computer in one place. And there's several different ways, more than several, there's a lot of different ways you can do that these days. And that's not really the subject for today, but I just want to tell you that it's possible. I can tell you that my husband takes a photo on his phone and it shows up on my computer within 10 minutes. I take a photo and it shows up on my computer. So that's what automation can do now, is that it can help you get all your photos from different places to that one location. And that's just an example for the ease of entry. Another example would be setting aside a date every Friday for like a downloads clear out. That part of the things you do to wrap up your week is to go through your downloads folder and make sure that files are unzipped if you're a digital scrapbooker, that anything that you need is saved, and then you delete the rest. I would say roughly 90% of the stuff in my downloads folder I never ever look at again. It was a menu for a restaurant. It was an image I downloaded to share with someone, similar to the thing. We use images as information transfer these days, not just for keeping of our own memories. So all of these files, but they pile up, and then you can't actually know what's something you want to save and then what's just this extra clutter. All right, and then for our last step, the finding focus, a great example of how you can find focus would be to identify a tiny habit that you can take. It could be looking at the photos on your phone every day and deleting the ones you don't want to keep. It's a great habit. It could be clearing out your email inbox every single day. Once you get to that point, you'll become kind of addicted to it, and you'll want to make sure that it's cleared out. It could be setting up a filter, and that's also connects to the automation inside of your email so that certain types of emails go to a certain place. One small thing that can make your life a little bit easier. And I'm not saying spend hours and hours decluttering your computer. I'm saying identify one tiny habit, because it's those little actions that will add up over time. And as I said, make each spring cleaning season feel a little bit easier. All right, guys. All right, Caroline has a great question here. She says, how do you get to the point without feeling overwhelmed by the existing backlog of chaos? I think that this goes back to the number one approach here, and that's you take that observation of yourself, you take it with no bias, no guilt, no negative or positive association. You identify what's real. This is the status. It's an update. It's okay the way it is. And then you say, and that's okay. Like I am who I am. Just the way you kind of accept other negative things in your life, whether that's someone who maybe leaves a dirty thing in the same place every single day, or the frustration of a child that's constantly nagging for something to eat. Every single day we go through things that have these little bits of negativity, and we let go because that's how you cope with life. You have to give that same kind of grace to yourself that you do to the other people you love in your life. Because when you do that, you can not feel that overwhelmed. Because I certainly have a backlog of chaos. We all do. We all have photos that we haven't sorted, projects we haven't finished, supplies that are disorganized. I have one drawer here. I call it my fun drawer. It's just a bunch of supplies. It's not organized in any way. And eventually it has made progress over time. I took all the stamps out of it. I took all the pen and papers out of it. And over time it will get smaller. But it's my junk drawer of scrapbooking. We all have that, but I have chosen not to let it overwhelm me. I know it will be okay, and I know that I have time built into my calendar with my community to make progress on it. At the end here, I'm going to talk a little bit about Refresh, which is our seasonal retreat. We're also doing these, we're calling them theme weeks. Once a quarter, we get together in our community and we organize something. We're doing 2 scrapbook supply theme weeks this year called Stash Bash, and then we're doing 2 photo organization weeks this year called Photo Crush. Now, some of you may be familiar with me teaching those as public classes. This year, we're kind of scaling it back, and we're just doing community-oriented events where we're all working together towards the same goal. We're all in different places. We're all using different strategies, different software, we're organizing different things, but we're working on it together and kind of leveraging that community momentum and the helpfulness of having others to ask questions of to make progress together. So I would say, going back to Caroline's question, is that having those times set aside also allow me to let go of the guilt and the overwhelm of knowing that there's a mess there. Because I know I have time set aside to deal with it. That's the same way I let go of any guilt with, oh, I'm not scrapbooking as much as I would like to, or as I think I could if I had more focus, more energy, more motivation. I know I have time set aside, and if I can do just that, I know that I'm successful and accomplished. All right, that was long-winded. I hope that was helpful. All right, let's go into the second part here. We're going to transition from more of what you would think about as traditional spring cleaning and decluttering when it comes to scrapbooking or your home in general. As I said before at the very beginning, a lot of things we do here, the ideas can be translated to your home, and you'll also find lots of secrets inside of your home, things you're already doing elsewhere that you can apply back to your scrapbooking. So just think about that a little bit. And we're going to do that a little bit here with decluttering our minds. So I'm going to go to the gallery view here. Raise your hand if you feel like you have mental clutter, stress, obligations, expectations, guilt. If you feel any of that or have recently. Should be everyone, because we all do. That's part of life. We develop coping mechanisms for managing that. We losing my train of thought here. We learn how to live with it, but we all wish it was a little bit less, and we wish we had more of those strategies. And so, using our approach to spring cleaning, first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify one unreasonable expectation or kind of a self-induced source of guilt or self-inflicted source of guilt. So often these are expectations we place on ourselves. And if somebody asks you, well, why are you doing that? You can't quite come up with the answer. It's because you told yourself you were going to. And sometimes these can weigh on us so much, but yet there's no one out there that's expecting you to actually do it, or that has this standard that's so high and that's weighing you down. And a great example with scrapbooking here is kind of creating the same album every single year in the same way, whether that's a specific album like a Christmas album or a birthday album. For example, I took them all downstairs, all my mini albums, but I have this series of photo books that I created about my daughter for the first 5 years of her life. Well, since then, my mom's asked, are you going to do one again? And I feel guilty about that, but I had to let go of that because it wasn't ever part of my plan. It was a project to do photo books for the first 5 years of her life. There was never an expectation that I was going to go further. I'm doing other projects now. And so I had to say, okay, this is not a fair expectation. It's partially mine and partially my mom's, but I'm going to let go of it. Another thing here is to have all your albums look the same. You can see my albums, they don't all look the same. A long time ago, I had to let go of the expectation that all of my albums were going to look the same and I was going to want to scrapbook the same way year after year. Because it was very clear very quickly that my interests were going to change. The amount I was going to create in a year was going to change depending on what's going on. And heck, even just the availability of products is going to change. So it's not realistic to think I'm just going to have this uniform series of albums for my entire life. And you can see those most recent ones right here. I even changed size. I scrapbooked in larger formats, 12 by 12 and 8.5 by 11 for a long time. And then recently, I've been really enjoying 6 by 8. And because I've worked through this, it was okay for me. It's like, yep, I'm just going to switch sizes and that's what it is. But I've heard others that don't feel that same sort of freedom. So you do have to work on it, but identify what's that thing that's overwhelming you and then choose to let go. All right. The second step here, so the optimizing the ease of entry when it comes to mental clutter, stress, obligations, is to identify, acknowledge, and embrace some sort of peace starter in your life. And so this could just be the act of lighting a candle. It could be turning on your favorite music. It could be writing in your journal. It could be working in your Scrapbook Your Way workbook. It could be posting to Instagram, if that is your thing. There's so many different things it could be, but to identify one action that's your cue of, okay, enough now. We're going to set this aside and I'm going to go into my creative space. And that's not just your physical space, but your mental space as well. Because so often this mental clutter, we can't always get rid of it. There's always going to be obligations there and things we have to do to deal with life. But you can say, okay, here's my transition point. I'm going to light this candle and I'm going to say, that's all in the other room. I'm here. I'm going to spend time with my memories, spend time feeling grateful for my life, for everything that's good and bad in my life, and I'm going to craft right now. Because when you can do that, you can use this as a trigger to get into that mood, even when you've had a disagreement with somebody you love, even when you're frustrated and tired or you don't feel that great. But you know, once you get to that point of creating, that you'll feel great at the end. It's that getting started that you need. So I love these different piece starters for making that transition. One that's really worked for me is reading. People always have talked about, voracious readers don't have problems getting started reading, but I've had trouble kind of relaxing. And so I will use reading as this tool to relax. I will read for 10 minutes. Sometimes it turns into that's what I'm going to do is keep reading that book. But other times I will use it as that tool to calm down enough that I feel like, okay, I'm good now. I can go into my craft room and I can make something. Because it's so hard to make those transitions when we're feeling this like swirl of guilt in the world. All right, and then the last step here, finding focus. My favorite trick is to take an index card or a sticky note and list your next 3 actions. Ignore your planner, ignore the larger list, ignore, everything you need to do. Just write, what are the next 3 things you're going to do? And then focus on that. And when you find yourself getting distracted, when you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, go back to this list of just 3 things. Such a powerful tool, though I will go for several days where I have to do this because I just feel like there's all these things coming at me and I can't escape that mental clutter. And I can't let go. And so using my piece starter and using my list helps me find that focus and control so that I can move forward and feel like I'm doing something. And this is one that goes well beyond your scrapbooking. As if you're feeling so swirled in guilt and expectations that you can't get anything done, that's when I use this next 3 items trick. But it works in scrapbooking as well. I love using this trick when you need to pause frequently. I often hear from scrapbookers that they don't have uninterrupted blocks of time. So if you always have a list of 3 with at least one more thing on it, when you sit back down, you'll always know what's next. Or you can even do a list of 1 thing. I love kind of leaving that reminder of where you left off. Like the next thing I was going to do was X. So that when you come back to your table, you can do X and keep moving. And then leave yourself another note if you need to pause again. All right. So the last section here is your calendar. Some of you may have very busy, jam-packed calendars. Some of you may not. But we all feel that sense of sometimes there's the rest of the world is driving our time. We can feel too busy. We can feel like we say yes too much and we can't say no. And those of us who are parents often feel that the kid-related activities are controlling our time. And that's just the way life goes. But in order to do this kind of spring cleaning approach, the first thing you need to do is to think about where would it be okay to be imperfect? What could you do less perfectly? What would be good enough? So for example, if you have trouble finding time, carving out time to scrapbook, maybe 1 night a week is when you get takeout or delivery or someone else cooks, even if it's not to your standards or something that you like. You put someone else in charge or you find that meal faster so that you can get everyone fed and then you have time to scrapbook. So many examples related to that, but it's really about looking at what you think you need to do and saying, what would be good enough? Is it, having a store-bought treat versus a handmade treat for a potluck you're going to, or an event? Those of us know who go to school events know that it probably has to be store-bought anyway, but even going to, a dinner party, I have found that I can throw together something from the grocery store much faster than I can making something totally from scratch. It's kind of that semi-homemade approach. You put it in your own bowl, you put your own dressing on it, and it looks like a fancy salad. But you bought all the ingredients and you threw it together. So things like that where you can reduce your standards just a little bit to carve out more time and more energy and feel like you have more space on your calendar for the crafty time that you know you want. All right, in terms of ease of entry, this is where it's helpful to look at your calendar in terms of where can you find more white space, whether that's a recurring date for yourself or getting up earlier or looking at your evenings in a different way. Sometimes it takes some out of the box thinking with how can I stagger timing with my partner? What can I move what I do, or what can I start doing differently so that I feel like I have more space in my days? This is a topic that we talk about again and again at Simple Scrapper, and how we can find more of that energy. So many of us feel like the time that we have is in the evening, but that's when we don't have as much energy for many of us. So how do you overlap having time and energy at the same time? So in terms of ease of entry, it's finding those things. It's really thinking about where can I create space for crafting and what clever tricks can I use to get there. And then in terms of finding focus, what I want you to do is think about when is the next time that you're going to scrapbook. Some of you guys are doing that right now. Some of you will do it this Friday night at our next member crop. Some of you will do it next week at Refresh, our member retreat. And some of you will do it at a crop with your friends you already have planned. Always thinking about when is that next time makes it more likely that you're going to actually do it. Okay, so when you think about all these things together, you now know what steps to take to help you feel more organized in your physical space, more in control of your digital space, more clear on your next actions, and more likely to actually create something. And so what I want to do now is transition to how can you kind of keep track of some of these plans, and then how you can also kind of continue to capture this fresh start, this new year energy through our Refresh retreat. I'm going to switch the camera here, and we're going to go into my demonstration workbook. And yeah, we've got about 14 minutes left. Definitely time to gear up any questions that you have about anything at all while I do that. Okay, so this is my demonstration workbook. I do have one that's my workbook, and then I have one for just sharing different examples with you guys, so that I could be more loose on the fly. I have several videos on this already. If you've not seen them, they're on our YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/simplescrapper, talking about why I created the workbook, how to use it. There's 3 different videos, so I'm not going to go into that many details. What I am going to do is I'm going to jump into the quarterly section here. So one of the sections is the quarterly check-in. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this goes back to the heart of why we do this seasonally, because you need that check-in, all that planning and preparation for the year that you did in January is not going to be the same 3 months later. You're going to have learned something from that experience. You're going to have made progress, you're going to have setbacks, and you're going to want to take stock and then start fresh again. And it's so empowering and such a transformative process to do it this way. So we'll work through the questions here. Number one, what is your number one personal priority for this quarter? So mine is photo book from Disney, and my personal priority actually happens to be a scrapbooking priority too. We took a big, nice trip to Disney for spring break, and getting this done is a huge priority because it really caps off that family experience. Someone who's not a scrapbooker is not going to have that as their personal priority, or you can have a number one priority that is not related to scrapbooking. The whole point here is to understand what that is. Does this mean, is this a scrapbooking quarter, or is this one where you're going to pull back? I'm going to add here that my number two priority is decluttering. Some of you guys know, if you follow me on Instagram, that I've started a 100-day project. We have a group for that inside of our community as well. So for 100 days, I'm going to declutter something, at least one thing every single day. This is another big priority, but I would say this is definitely number two to my Disney photo book. I don't want too much time to pass before I work on that photo book. I've done a lot of progress so far with managing the photos, curating them, but I need to get to that step of actually doing the photo book before those memories get too big. And the decluttering, this is broken down. This is very actionable. This is just, approximately 15 minutes a day. So it doesn't take a lot of focused effort. It's just something that's kind of there in the background. I often find that big projects that take a lot of focus and energy can be coupled very well with those types of background projects. All right, what's been working well in your scrapbooking? I'm going to say number one here is crops. I never thought I was a person that liked to scrapbook with others until I started doing it. Many of you guys know that I came to scrapbooking with from an interesting way. I was never a paper scrapbooker. In my 20s, I started as a digital scrapbooker and started this business along with it, and then transitioned to being a paper scrapbooker. So I never had that quote unquote old school crop experience in the heyday of scrapbooking. But then I started scrapbooking with others, mostly online, sometimes in person, and that has been transformative for me being productive. I love it. And I also love doing it when it's not me teaching at the same time, because I don't have to talk through it and explain things. I can just be there in the company of others. Number two, what's working well? I'm going to say more digital and hybrid. I've been using my computer more and my phone, and really taking advantage of that. I really thought for this Disney photo book that I was going to do all 6x8 layouts and some pocket pages. Before I ever even got to Florida, we drove, I realized there's going to be so many photos, that's not feasible. I need to do a photo book. I need to do something that is more techy, less crafty, in order to accomplish and actually finish. And so I've been leaning into that, and I'm thinking about doing that for Week in the Life this year, which happens in May. All right, what might you need to let go of? Let's see. I don't have anything popping up off the top of my head. I almost want to say what's working well is my memorabilia organization. We just, as I mentioned, we were having these theme weeks. We just did this a Stash Bash week, and I worked through a bunch of bins of memorabilia from my daughter's very early childhood, and I've continued to organize them in these iris containers, and it's very hard to show this on camera. Maybe I should switch the camera real quick. So I have these iris bins, which scrapbookers love, and this one's labeled daycare. I have another labeled for preschool, and then it starts with kindergarten. And so I have one for every year. Eventually, I feel like I will be able to narrow them down. I'm going to digitize a lot of the artwork, but for now, this is the best strategy. It allows me to feel like it's under control without dedicating a ton of time to that digitization process, because we know it takes a lot of time to do that. I don't feel the need to scrapbook these. I don't feel the need to do more. It's just a time period and a box. Sometimes your strategies and your solutions can be as simple as that. Don't overthink it. So I wanted to add that as well as something that is really, really going well for me. Okay, what you might need to let go of. I might put quantity here, in part because I've been doing, I'm working on this photo book. I've been working on memorabilia. Quantity of layouts out here might be smaller. I haven't done as much of other 2019 scrapbooking yet. I'm also continuing to not feel as excited about 12 by 12. I made one the other day as part of a crop challenge, but I'm still not loving that size. I'm loving the 6 by 8, and that's okay. I know eventually I'll get more excited about it again, but it's okay to acknowledge for now that 6 by 8 is what's working for me. All right, and then we have the most important page here. What are your top 3 scrapbooking priorities for this quarter? Well, obviously, we know the personal priority here is that photo book. And again, as I said, if your personal priority is something else, like say you're moving or you're dealing with a family, like you're caring for a family member who's going through an illness, or you're working really hard on taking care of your body and losing weight, and you're on your fitness journey. It's okay to have your personal priority somewhere else, but that's going to influence your scrapbooking priorities. If you have these big priorities going on here, you're probably going to want to do less here. You may not even want to do a number 2 and number 3. But it's about thinking top down so that when you set out what is it you're going to do, you don't bite off more than you're going to chew, and you're just going to be very, very practical. Because we want you to feel successful and accomplished and forward moving, but that doesn't necessarily mean quantity, as I said, or feeling like you have to do it all. Anything that you can do is a step forward, and that deserves to be celebrated. We love celebrating victories, and every even baby step. Showing up here is a victory for you. So my priority is the Disney photo book. And I know, realistically, that's probably the number one priority. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do anything else, but I'm probably not going to focus on anything else until that's done, and that's okay. It's going to be a huge win, also probably a huge expense, and that's okay too, but that's the number one priority I have at the moment. Knowing this is also probably going to influence my purchasing decisions. I'm probably not going to buy a lot of other paper scrapbook supplies right now. I'm not going to start other projects because I know that I have this priority. And then how would you like to participate at Simple Scrapper this quarter? I love having this in there so that you can be thinking about whether you're a paid member or just part of our community at large. How do you want to show up? Do you want to read the book club book? Do you want to attend our member crops? Do you want to participate in our refresh retreat, which I will get to in our last few minutes here? How do you want to use and leverage Simple Scrapper to support your scrapbooking? Because that's what we're here for, is to help you on your journey, whatever your journey looks like. And that's why our podcast is called Scrapbook Your Way, and why the workbook is called Scrapbook Your Way, because it's about your journey and supporting you along the way, not telling you how you should do things or what it should look like. We're all about you here. All right. Last couple minutes here, I'm going to try to do a screen share. Back to me. I'm going to go to our community. Okay. All right, so I should be sharing my screen, and you should just be seeing Google Chrome and inside of our member community. Does it look okay, Kim? Okay, great. And I do apologize, my internet's running a little bit slow because of the live streaming video. Our community usually runs really, really fast, but it did take a second to come up here because of all my bandwidth is going to the video. So this is what it looks like when you log in to My Simple Scrapper. This is our membership community. We are a paid membership. We've been around since actually 2011. It's kind of amazing sometimes when I think about how long we have been a community, and we have members that have been around since the very beginning. But what I want to do is I want to show you what it looks like when you participate in Refresh. So I'm going to go under the courses area. So you can see we have a member orientation, we have our Photo Crush course, we have these new things called the pop-up workshops. These are new mini workshops every single quarter. The last one we did is on apps, and then we're going to do one coming up soon on mixed media backgrounds. I'm really excited about that one. We have Simple Scrapbooking School, and this is where we get to our Refresh retreats here. You can see a top secret one here for spring. I'm not going to go into that one. I'm going to go into the one we did in January just to show you what the classroom looks like. All right, so you go in and you can see we have a welcome area. I always have an audio or sometimes even a video welcome message of what you can expect in this session, and then just some introductory information. For every Refresh retreat, we do several live crops and chats. Sometimes our members even host their own crops during that time, but we always have scheduled time to create together. But in general, the retreat is on your own. It's asynchronous, as they call it in e-learning. It means that you can pop in when it's convenient to you and work on the activities. So what you need to know about Refresh is that it's a 7-day retreat that's exclusively for our members. It's included with membership. And the retreat has daily activities. They are very highly curated activities so that it's doable and not this giant class that you're not going to be able to finish. It's designed for you to pop in, experience something with the community, share something, and then there's options for doing more if you have more time and energy. And there's this base level that's doable for everyone. We've worked really hard over the past few years, and in this particular session, we trialed these new, we call them level ups, where you can do more if you want on certain activities, or all of them, or none of them. It's totally up to you, because we know that everyone's life is going to look a little bit different from session to session, and even your interests are going to be different depending on what the activity is. So we give you lots of options, and then of course we have the content. There's always a warm-up activity to help you get in that right frame of mind. We have our retreat workbook. So we have a workbook that mirrors all of the content. So if you need to take things on the go, you can have a digital version. You can work in Google Docs. You can also download a PDF version and print it out and work on your own and keep track of your results. But everything else is also here in the classroom, and you can click things off from there and also comment and share. So Head Start, this was our day 1 activity. The activity was take a brand new selfie, upload your photo as a comment to this lesson, and include a list of 3 ways that you are creative. And we had our level up options as well. So you can see there's selfies here from our members. Some of them just left comments. You can make it as simple or as robust and detailed as interests you. Here's one from Heather here. She ended up writing text on hers. That was one of the level ups. So she's creative with handmade cards, seasonal traditions, and themed parties. So as you see, it's very simple, fun, doable activities that help you think about yourself, think about your hobby, and feel more refreshed. That's the whole point, is that to really feel more re-energized and motivated in your scrapbooking. All right, so that was our day 1. You can see here we've got 7 days, and then of course there's a post-retreat activity to help you get kind of refocused for the season ahead. We all know when we go to retreats or a big scrapbooking craft that there's that bursting of energy with all of your friends, and you feel like, oh, I could maintain this forever. But then you go home to real life and it's hard, and you have to you know, you remember there's all these obligations and that mental clutter starts happening again. When you use this post-retreat activity, you're going to have your list of 3 little things to help you stay focused and forward moving. And then, of course, we've got some other little conversations here inside of our each classroom. We always do transcripts and recordings. Every single event that we do on live on video, unless there's a technical malfunction, we do record it and share that. Refresh is something we've done for, I think we started in 2013, 2014, several years now. We're on the, you know, the manyth edition. I feel like, especially with Kim, she's here, my teaching assistant, we have really honed this format to just make it fun and something that our members look forward to. And I know there's many of our members here, and I know how much they love Refresh and love that we're always changing things up. Every single season, you have something to look forward to, an opportunity to connect not only with your scrapbooking, but with your fellow peers. It's that time set aside, as we've been discussing throughout this whole hour. All right, so I'll stop the screen sharing and take our last, we're a little bit over. I thank you guys for having patience here. If there are any additional questions, I am happy to answer them. Everyone must be just happy as a clam. You can ask a question by unmuting yourself or typing it in the chat box, either way. You can also email me privately afterwards, just jennifer@simplescrapper.com, the email address that you receive emails from me from. So Lois says you've done such a good job that we are all organized up. That's the way I like things. Thank you, guys. All right, definitely let me know if you have any questions. I love giving these presentations. Sometimes I do a presentation, but I feel like I'm much more comfortable just talking to you. And I hope you enjoyed this format. I would love any feedback on the Zoom format. I know I felt more comfortable being able to see your faces, whereas when we do YouTube Live, it's just me talking to the webcam. This felt much more personal and much more connective, and seeing you guys scrapbook actually kind of relaxed me a lot too. So hopefully you enjoyed it as well. And I will definitely be using your feedback to inform how we do these future trainings. Definitely one next season, as always. I always love to do these free ones so that we can reconnect with your workbook, reconnect with your hobby, and if you choose, join us for Refresh for that deeper, more intensive experience. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Take care.